Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me for this hour, I guess we'll call it our round two preview, even though we looked at the Rangers and Hurricanes in our last episode, are Tim Kalinowski and Nick Martin. We'll get started here right away. Let's just get right to it. We'll do game one between the Bruins and Panthers. We'll talk the series price. This one starts Monday. The Bruins are plus 138 in game one. Panthers minus 170. Totals 5.5. The series line plus 145-ish for Boston. Florida minus 175. This one's tricky to handicap. I think most people are. There's a chance a lot of people get carried away with Florida being one-way traffic after not really what Florida did, but the fact that Toronto and Boston went 7 games. It really looked like the Bruins couldn't get anything generated offensively, and now you're just getting now they're playing a better team. I don't suspect that this series is going to play out like that Boston-Toronto series, which was just an absolute wall fight, like just two walls staring at each other, and we'll see who gets the moment of magic. Ends up being Boston, Nick. So I would lean towards the Panthers. If you are going to bet them, I would bet them to like sweep or minus 2.5, because I think that they can there is a lot of potential for them to overrun the Bruins if they do get their way. And the other look I was thinking of here is Carter Verhaeghe to lead the series in goals. He just did it against the Lightning, and I think that the way the scoring the fact that there's so many good scorers on Florida always kind of inflates his odds a little bit. I think you can make the same argument for Tkachuk, but with the fact that Sam Reinhart is on the board, he sucks up a little bit of the value, and you can kind of just get a better number on Verhaeghe. So Panthers sweep and Verhaeghe. Those would be the things I would look at here. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I'm actually a little less. I can definitely see the Panthers just demolishing them here. The thing for me that I had believed entering those series is I really thought that Tampa was the softer matchup. I said it entering that Boston series. That was why I was big on, or entering the Florida series. That's why I was big on Florida to cover the series spread, because I really thought it was Tampa who had the most flawed. Their decor was not good. They played good for 1 month this season and got a ton of credit for it. And it feels like people forgot this is a Tampa team that lost to Toronto last year. So the one narrative that I think is getting taken a little far is maybe that this is just like such a tap in compared to what they had last round. I truly think that Boston is a better team than Tampa. So I'm not necessarily saying like don't fade Florida, but I'm not as committed to it as I was last round, or don't bet Florida here. I think it's gonna be really interesting to see the way it goes. It's a little tough to read how bad Toronto really was just offensively versus how much that was two teams playing really good hockey, and what we'll be able to see, from the Panthers in terms of being able to generate a lot more actual goals versus Boston and expose that their offensive play was really bad. I think a good example is if you look at that game seven. Yes, it looked, like both offenses were pretty stale. It was also really clear, even compared to the first second round game today, which is what I was saying. There wasn't like a lot of misplays or bad puck management, right? Like I really think as much as people weren't happy with the product, as much as people think the Leafs were a joke, I do think that there was really sharp defensive play from both sides. So it'll be interesting to see how that carries over, if maybe Boston can kind of remain really sharp and lean on Swayman when things don't go that well to get a result. So I think the game one price is a little right. Part of me thinks that the Bruins are going to be able to make this into a series a little more often than people think, but we'll see. Maybe that take will be idiotic. Maybe I'm just wrong to think that Toronto was really doing anything right in that. But I kind of thought that series trended to being pretty well played hockey games. So it'll be interesting to see if Florida just completely exposes Boston, because I do think that, at the same time, it wasn't the most impressive series from Boston by any means, but I think people are kind of giving them like zero credit for the things that they did well. So uh, we'll see. Yeah, I part of me feels like they're going to kind of hang around and make this into a bit of a series.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm giving Boston like very, very little to no chance in the series, and I'm not trying to really slight them. It's really more about what I think of Florida. We obviously know how last year's series between these two teams went. I just think everywhere you look, Florida pretty much overpowers them. You're basically going to rely on, Swayman to get super hot again, and who knows if like with the runway in terms of rest for him, if he can handle it. Not saying he can't, but also too, I don't know if I said it last week or not, but it really hit me when and I think it was in game 5, the Bruins were playing 4-on-4 with Marchand in the box, and you're sending out Pasternak, and then the next group was Heinen. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, they don't have a better option than Heinen. Like this is what they are. And if you look at just most goals in series here on any of these books, like it takes you a while to get to the second Bruins scorer aside from Pasternak. They just in terms of high end skill, they don't match up well with Florida. And then plus the physical aspect. Boston's D was, I guess, fine in the series, but when you nitpick, people had a lot of problems with Charlie McAvoy, Lindholm at times. So I laid it with the series price. I would take it. There's still a -176 out there. I would take that Florida series to win. And then also too, I took Florida game 1. I would only take it to -170 if that's still out there. I know we can have the rest versus rust debate, and I think it's hard to actually pull out the real number because there's always a lot of other factors that go into this besides just, a team with the layoff versus team not. Like matchups in hockey are styles makes fights dependent. So I actually think it hurts Boston here with how much hockey they had to play, how much extra hockey they had to play. So for all that, that's my kind of my series in game 1 handicap. And Leboff, to add to your Verhaeghe, I would go maybe Kachuk, most goals plus 750. That would be if you're going Verhaeghe, I'll go Kachuk.
Yeah, I would decide between the two of those guys. It's that I feel like these round like the derivative markets on like player props are not as enticing for round 2 as they were for round 1. It's because we'll talk when we talk about the Oilers at Canucks, it's just like so hard to see somebody else besides Hyman or McDavid and Draisaitl, right? Like, and I think you can make a similar argument with Dallas and Colorado. Like, there's one or two guys from each side that you'd feel like would be really tough to catch, but we'll try.
And
to
I'll
make
just
up.
add to that, Leboff, like Pasternak being technically the favorite here in terms of most goals for the series. Like that's kind of the opposite of what you're saying. Like in terms of just that number, like I don't see how he could lead the series.
Yeah, this is the one. As I say, I think this is the one series where like you can do it. Like I went with Marchand in the first round at 17-1, just because like if you shut down Pasternak or he doesn't have an off, like where are the goals coming from? So that's Boston and Florida. We'll go Rangers and Hurricanes game 2 next. We'll just go in chronological order. So Boston and Florida is Monday night. This one, game 2 at the Garden, is Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. The Rangers got the win in game 1, 4-3. I think that scoreline is maybe a little flattering towards Carolina, but we can talk about that as we go on. The Rangers are now -142 series favorite. Canes +120. And for the line for game 2 is actually Carolina is a slight favorite, -118. Rangers -102. So right around where we closed for game 1, total 5.5 once again. Yeah, so I was saying, like, I just wasn't all that impressed with Carolina against the Islanders, and I remain a little skeptical of them compared to what everyone thought. I just don't think that they have brought their A game to the playoffs for a lot of the playoffs. As weird as that sounds, like game 2 against the Islanders, absolutely really good. The first period of game 5, really good. They played the Islanders well throughout the rest, but they were really lacking, like crispness, finish, being clinical. One part of their game seems to always be lagging, and right now it looks like a couple of their parts of their game are lagging behind the Rangers. So I actually, I'm pretty sure would rather bet the Rangers here as an underdog in game 2 than go back to Carolina. I don't see it with the goaltending. If the special teams doesn't get better, which like they struggled stopping the Islanders power play. The Rangers are now 2 for 2. Like, Nick, what am I missing here that I feel like Carolina is actually in a bit of trouble here?
I kind of think they're in a bit of trouble, but I think it's taking it a little far to just say the scoreline was flattering. I actually really disagree with that. Carolina still hit 2 posts. They still missed a breakaway. They didn't manage the puck sharply the way you typically see from Carolina. But with that said, if I can see how the numbers suggest that even strength chance creation is what it was, I think the problem is just the goaltending. That's for me what is the most concerning. I mean, ultimately the game comes down to, and don't get me wrong, it was pretty clear that the Rangers came out and took advantage of, and this is the part that I think is really tough to handicap, is the Rangers came out in the first period and absolutely stormed them, and their power play was drastically better. All their goals were very legit. But also how much of that is Carolina going to be able to shake off is the question. That first game opening goal from Zibanejad's just a complete defensive breakdown. You don't typically see that from Carolina. So we'll see. And then from there on out, they did stabilize and create more of the overall chances, which was reflected by the numbers. And it ultimately came down to, and this is why I just don't think you can touch Carolina at this price. Like I can see it. I wouldn't bet it. Is that Anderson lets in this Panarin goal that never goes in. That's not a goal in the playoffs. Like if you have a goalie who gives up that goal in the playoffs, you almost never win that game, I'd say. And as lame as that is, and I'm not just trying to hate on the Rangers because they did a ton of things right, but ultimately that was what decided the game, and that's just a super soft goal, right? Like everyone would be absolutely shocked if that went in at the other end. So I don't know. And the thing that why it means so much is it's not like it was just Sturkin giving it up. It was Anderson who people are kind of, it's, he looked a little sloppy in round one, right? Like I think at times it looked concerning. And then seeing him open up this round like that, I can see the arguments for the Canes, but I don't think you can touch them as a road favorite again in this game. I'd rather just jump on player props again. And I'm going to go right back to Marty Necas. Unfortunately, we were on the wrong prop of his on Sunday because he did score the goal. Only had 2 shots, but from 7 attempts and 5 unblocked. And, he looked a little nervous early in the game, I thought, but he got going. And I thought he was one of the better Canes, altogether. So I feel pretty confident he's going to keep driving play and he'll get his shots. So I want to go back on him to go over 2.5. And that's the play for me here. I think that the rest of the game's a little tough to handicap because ultimately I think the Rangers did do more right in game one. But I also felt like Carolina managed the puck really horribly and we didn't see them do some of the stuff they typically do quite well to the level that they can. So it's kind of tough to, I think, predict the way that they're going to bounce back.
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked to hear you guys be so as pessimistic as you are against the Carolina Hurricanes here, because I feel like I've been the voice of reason in terms of like I worry about Carolina's goaltending. Like I was kind of saying that going in here, but look, it's just one game. New York does what they do best, and they have, a great power play. And you could say Carolina special teams are good too, and they should have, been net, cancel each other out. But like, look, it's home ice. It's game one. That's what they do. We had this conversation. We talked 3 days ago, and it was like, oh, there's no more value in betting Carolina to win the series. Like numbers gone. We would love to take them, but It's like, well, I don't know how crazy of a game one that was to like sway all those things. I'm looking at it and I'm taking Carolina to win the series, plus 125 the second that game ended. Like I'll take my chances. I don't think Carolina is a team that's going to let in or allow types of opportunities that New York had in that game, which like Zibanejad just like naked in the slot. And again, goaltending 100% a concern, but this is still a Carolina team that was finished top 2 in a lot of advanced metrics in terms of power rankings at the end of the season. One game in New York when they get the crowd going with the power play and all that just like doesn't change much for me. I think like this is still going probably the distance to me.
Yeah, no, and I think that is fair. Like you do see, the thing that was just so concerning for me really was Anderson looking off. Like I would have loved, obviously Carolina wasn't as crisp at even strength as you've come to expect. And like to your point, Tim, we did see instances like that this year, with the Avs, their 7-6 game in round one. Everyone was like, oh, how are they ever going to bounce back from that? How is Georgiev? And he did. And we have seen stuff like that, right? But I don't know. And then the other part of it is obviously the Rangers just are, a pretty sharp team. So it feels like, kind of the Carolina bounce back angles, like at least accurately accounted for with the fact that they're still a favorite here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
and they Rangers took money right before puck drop. If I'm wrong, if I'm mistaken, I feel like it went down. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
really
not
the
sure. I'm
goaltending.
sad.
Like
Stop looking.
it's that simple. Like because you're gonna have to beat the Rangers in parts of the game that.
And that's the thing is they just didn't. It wasn't, the soft goal did make the difference, but we were expecting Carolina to just clean them up at least at even strength,
Right.
maybe lose a special teams battle a bit, and it just didn't quite go that way. So I think that's why it's just scared to like
Yeah.
touch them when they didn't necessarily have the edge you were even counting on them having.
Before we move on, Levi, I want to bring up, sorry, that game comfortably over. Do we have any thoughts of that continuing? Maybe just
I
over
honestly
the
lean
Rangers
with the
series?
over a
Yeah,
little
me too.
bit. Like I had said with you guys, I'm just hoping that we get these series as high scoring in the early going, and then hopefully we get some low totals in the back half. And I thought that was a great start in that Carolina one because I think some of the
Finally.
breakdowns, like some of those breakdowns aren't happening late in the series. I don't imagine. We'll continue to see more penalties. So I know it's not like that interesting to give out to listeners, but we cooked all weekend on unders, and I'm hoping that this series trends towards that, where like by the end, I'm pretty confident everyone will be locked in, and like you're not going to see the chances you saw it in
Because
today's game.
Yeah, because I wanted to say that I'm interested in the Boston, Florida over, and I forgot to mention that because last year in that series, pretty much every game but one would have gone over 5.5. So um, I think these early games, kind of what we're seeing the trend here, opens up early and then later on it goes hours without goals.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I wouldn't on like a new series. I think it'd be kind of crazy to play like a juiced under 5.5 in the Bruins. Like, I feel like they're going to try to keep playing it the way they played it versus Toronto, but who knows if it actually goes that way. And Toronto, like, contrary, like they're the ultimate under team in the playoffs. They really are. They just try to make it into a coin flip, and I feel like it's a bit of that pressure thing where they're just trying not to make mistakes. So I know Boston's strengths will still obviously be defensive play and goaltending, but I still think, yeah, that like you said, you're probably not going to want to play the 5.5, expecting that as a lock, it'll look like the Leaf series.
All right. The other game on Tuesday night is the game one between Dallas and Colorado. We're recording this just a little while after Dallas dispatched Vegas in game seven. Now we go to a much, what should be another brutal series for the Stars. They are the favorite to win the series. -138 is on the board right now. Colorado +115, the game one line, +120 on the Avs. Stars -140-ish, and the total at 5.5 for this one. Uh, I think that the way this series could honestly play out very similarly to what we just saw with Dallas in against Vegas. Like it would not shock me if Dallas is down a game or two again in the series and fights their way to get to 6 or 7 or whatever. The goaltending situation is really hard to get a kind of grasp for, I would say. Ottinger was really good in the deep end of the series, but he's been kind of all over the place for most of the season. And last, Georgiev, man, it's anybody's guess what version we get out of him. So that becomes an issue. Then it plays out a little like we saw with Colorado and Seattle last year, where you're looking at a team like Colorado that's top heavy. The depth might not be as concerning as it was last year because they actually have a decent number 2 center, and those guys are playing well. The middle six played really well against Winnipeg. But then again, they're also playing a team that's like Seattle on steroids in Dallas, right? Like the Stars are really deep, but they also are much better than Seattle was. So you could see them giving the Avalanche the same problems. Um, I think I will bet Colorado as a game one underdog. But I'm going to be looking to bet the Stars once again if they fall behind in the series, Nick.
Yeah, I like the Stars' chances in the series just fine, but I completely agree. Right now, the Avs are out at +122 to win game one. I hope that number holds because I feel, I don't feel like I have a great read on exactly the way the series is going to go. I think that the Stars are a much better team than the Jets, and they're going to present a much different challenge to Colorado in terms of like first off, we really saw the Jets collapse and just give up the neutral zone so easily. By the end of that series, it was just they had no answers. Like the Avs were just coming through a speed so consistently. In my mind, I don't think the Stars are going to allow it to be that easy. I think they're going to spend significantly less time defending in their zone, and that Dallas has like a much deeper offense than the Jets. So I think they present some new challenges to Colorado. But with that said, as much as it's like, I think you just at plus 122, I just have to say Colorado in game one. You take the look there and see how it goes. I continue to think home ice doesn't mean a lot. I think after the result of tonight's game, they finished up at 21-21 or 22-22, right? I think so. They were like 500 round one.
I have to run my math, but you're probably.
I think
it's
they
close.
finished exactly 500. So, and obviously the Stars, like that series, it didn't mean much. So I just think we don't really know what to expect in game one. Colorado obviously played really good in their opening series too. They've been rested, ready to get into this one. I think at plus 122, you take your chances with the Avs and see where it goes from there. And I think there's a lot of arguments in favor of both teams, and I think that there's a pretty good chance this is going to be a long series. But for me, I'm kind of a little surprised to see one team this favored in game one.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm taking the Avs game one here. I'm gonna run the over 5.5 games in the series again, minus 188. The margins are super thin here. I would say on top of everything, I think I'm really interested to see how Ottinger looks with the just complete barrage of shots and opportunities that Colorado's able to generate. Like Ottinger can be so shaky at times, like when he's on his on is Vezina level, but it can look ugly with him at times, just as quick. So definitely interested to see on how like the whole Colorado forecheck relentlessness looks. And yeah, I just think for a game one price, like this is a kind of similar prices that Vegas was getting, in games 1 and 2 again at Dallas. Like I see no reason to run it back. Like it's not that crazy here. Or I rather it is crazy to see them as big a favorites as they are right now.
Yeah, and they're out around plus 105 to win the series. And like this, I think again, you just take your chances in game one and then go from there. I don't think it's like a thing you'd rather have the whole series where you eventually get Colorado's games in Colorado to try to help them out that much more. If you know what I mean. Like I just don't really see why you wouldn't just take plus 122 on game one compared to the series line. And then you can make whatever evaluations after that. But I don't really see the arguments for taking the lesser price if you can get a better one on game one, when you obviously if you don't believe in them, just wait until they lose game one and then jump in.
Okay, Wednesday night would be the start of Edmonton and Vancouver. The Oilers are on the road for game one and are a minus 132 favorite, total 5.5. The series price for this one is sitting at minus 250 for the Oil and plus 202 for the Canucks. Obviously, a lot of that number has to do with the fact that the Canucks are on to their third string goalie, Arturs Silovs, who's been really good to get them through that Nashville series. And now he has to step up pretty big time in weight class in the Oil. I think you can lay it with Edmonton in game one. I'm not going to lay the series price. I think it's a little scary, considering like we know that Vancouver can play a decent game and try to turn things into rock fights pretty well. Maybe they get Demko back in the business end of the series. Who knows? But I like the Oilers in game one. I think that if they lose game one somehow, I'm going to probably be right back in on them or look for cup futures, stuff like that. Because I have a hard time seeing how Edmonton doesn't just pull away at some point in the series, Nick.
Yeah, I like the Oilers here, and I think they're rightfully the biggest favorite in round two, which has now made them into the cup favorite. So that's the reason behind that, obviously, is just that they have by far the best chance to win the current series. And then once we go to the next round, I think the Oilers price will become equal with most of the other top teams. Um, but I agree with you. And as much as Seeloff's wasn't a problem at all, right? Like he was really good. And I think it's one of those things like how much does the way that they had to beat Nashville, how much is that going to apply to beating Edmonton? It's kind of like the Boston debate for me because yeah, Vancouver did do some things well. They gave up absolutely nothing. But how's that going to apply when they face an Edmonton team with so much more offensive punch? And can the Oilers get to Seelovs a little more? So I thought the game one number looked a little short. I think everyone's going to think that. I'm guessing, the public's going to be really heavy on the Oilers at -132. I don't really see who's crawling to the window to bet on Seelovs and the Canucks at +110. It feels like it's a little short. I wonder. Yeah, I don't know. It really does just look short to me. I feel like I'm trying to like figure out what I'm missing, and it's kind of tough. I think Vancouver has a little bit more defensive upside. They manage the puck really well. You could kind of see some of the Oilers' flaws getting exposed. Like the one defensive pairing had some bad moments versus the Kings. But I also think the Kings were pretty good. I don't know. Like I still, for as many things as Kings fans want to complain about, which is a conversation for another day because there was a lot of like mismanagement. I still think that you could argue the Kings are a better team than the Preds are right there. And I feel like for what the Oilers did to them, they deserve this credit. And I also think the Kings' game plan is kind of comparable to that of the Canucks, right? Which is kind of I think a thing that works in the favor of Vancouver heading into this series and why it should be another pretty comfortable series. So yeah, I'm gonna take the Canucks in game one here. Or sorry, the
Yeah,
Canucks, the Oilers. Take the Oilers in game one. And I should also throw out, well, I had that little slip up. I like one of the chalky goal scorers in this one. I like Draisaitl to lead the series in goals at +400. I think that you've just got to give some credit to the way he scored in the playoffs historically. Hope Zach Hyman doesn't have as many tap-ins this series and more of those one-timers from Draisaitl. So I think +400 is a little short. I feel like it's like 50-50 that we're just going to see him go off and follow up his kind of strong finish to the end of the Kings series there. So yeah, I like Draisaitl to be the series leading goal scorer.
yeah, that's a good shout there. I was hoping to sneak that in myself actually. But and I was also going to add to maybe if you want a Canucks one, Pedersen at 14-1. Not a bad. He has had trouble getting going, but if the series does open up, I think that's probably Vancouver's. Hopefully for them, their best option. In terms of the series cap, I think you guys nailed it. It's Edmonton, but not really worth laying the price. Game one, I already bet Edmonton, same as you guys. And I'll also add, I'm interested. Looks like there's a 5.5 game one total hanging around. I would like 6 too on the over. To me, Vancouver can't play the way that they played against Nashville, against Edmonton. Like I just don't see how it's going to work. Like it could be pretty. You can find success packing it in against. Again, full credit to him, Gus Nyquist and Tommy Novak, but against this Oilers team, I don't really know how you're going to be able to do that. So I think that kind of leads me to actually this thing having to open up a little more. And like if you look in the regular season, the Canucks beat the Oilers 3 or 4 times, or no, excuse me, 4 or 4 times.
But
And
those were all. Oh, I guess they had the 2-0
right,
win late in the year, right?
right,
Because the
right.
first 3 was when Edmonton was like in hell and just under Woodcroft still, and everyone like it was just a gong show.
Correct. One was like they swept them in the first 2 games of the series or season, but all those games tended to have to be like higher scoring. Like I think this is part of what made Vancouver a good regular season team is they could kind of play any style. I don't think that they can play the style they played against Nashville, against Edmonton. So it's going to be interesting to see. Like they're going to have to, I think, try and run with them. And I think they actually can in a sense. Like I think Vancouver can play a lot of different ways. It's going to be, can the goaltender be, again, he was great in the first round. Can they get a good enough goaltending that they can play a track meet? So I don't want them to try and play that packeting game. I don't know if that's totally going to work. We saw LA try and do it. I think you got to run with them.
Yeah, and the Kings series overall, especially the early part, would work in the favor of that argument too, because again, Kings pretty comparable to Vancouver, and you still saw a lot of those early games get crazy. And I mean, it's not like the Oilers. I know they defended much better over the entire part of the year, but they're not going to try to play that much of like that defensively to begin with. And then they do still have some flaws that can get exposed. So I agree. At the start of the series, I'd definitely be leaning towards overs.
All right. That does it for this episode. We will be back again before. Hold on, let me think about this. Let's see.
While you think about it, what
Yeah.
do we think of what do we think of a Jason Robertson or a Rupe Hintz most goals in the series? Plus 850 and 14-1.
Yeah, that one's tough.
I
I
would go
just
with
feel
Hintz.
so many guys going. Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
Hintz did-
And Stan Coven 35-1.
Yeah, that. Well, I don't know. I don't really have a lot of conviction in that one. There's so many stars that I could see getting going.
I
There's
know.
so many Avs. Like even the
Yeah.
Avs are really tough.
I think the
Uh,
bar is just going to be set way too high by somebody like Rantanen or
Yeah.
McKinnon or somebody will just. Okay, that wraps up this episode of Line Change. We will be back recording after the games on Tuesday night. We'll look ahead to Boston, Florida game 2 and beyond for Wednesday and Thursday, and continue this cadence as we get into deeper into round 2. Before we sign off, do you guys have a best bet you want to give out? Tim, we could start with you. What's your favorite bet for these upcoming game 1s and the Carolina Rangers game 2?
My favorite bet, I'm going to be kind and leave the Oilers to someone else. So I will go with the over 6 in that game.
I'll do
Instead.
the same thing. I'll leave the Oilers for somebody else. I'll go Rangers at minus 105 or better in game 2.
Okay, I'm gonna leave the Oilers and go with Natchez to
Can we go back around?
should have had it, Timmy. I don't know. Everyone just heard that was basically gonna be your guys' pick. So obviously we all like the Oilers, but I also think Natchez over 2.5 shots is a good look again.
Perfect. All right. That'll do it. Thank you to our producer, Noah. We'll see you guys next time.